Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. We have Nicolas Hyacinthe. He is a artist. Today we're going to talk art. We'll dive into Nicolas' early days to where he is now. Art will be a main focus of today's show. Roll the intro. Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, first of all, let me say I'm honored to be here. I think that, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and the opportunity for me to show my work and talk about my work and some of my influences and stuff. But also, it's been and it's been wonderful to get to know you and to meet you and and I love what you're doing with the show and what you and your you have a really great interest in people, and I think that I see that you really take the time to invest in people and in knowledge, and I find that very commendable. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to get to know you. I'm glad to get to know your audience. So yeah, let's get to it. I'm excited.
Um, a common question I usually ask in the show is to tell me about your early days, as in growing up.
Okay.
As in, you grew up in Haiti or
Yeah, I grew up in Haiti. So I was born in Haiti. I was born in Port-au-Prince. I was born in in a place called Kafu, which really literally means crossroads, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the translation. And the thing is that actually one of my last year I had an art show that I called Kafu, because it's just it's such a, I just love that that I was born at the crossroads, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how my life has felt, right? Literally, because I feel I grew up in Haiti. I came to America when I was around 9, 10 years old, and it's been it's been an amazing experience. So I still have, to me, I feel like I'm always, even though I left Haiti, Haiti's never left me.
Yeah.
And then, but at the same time, I've had a lot of my formative years have been in America, especially on the East Coast. So it's been an interesting thing. But yeah, to me, went to school in Haiti for for a little while, and was educated there, and then eventually to come and be educated here. And yeah, I don't, looking back on it, man, it gave me a really amazing understanding of people, and also of culture, right? And and sort of how, and sort of how, and just the little nuances, what makes us who we are, So, but yeah, so I grew up in Haiti. I to me, I think that I always say that I'm a Haitian living in Massachusetts, right? Whenever people ask me where I'm from. Currently, I mean, like I said, I live in Massachusetts, but so I'm always going to be a Haitian person that's living here, and again, and I will carry, these experiences with me, and I express them in my work, or however I can.
Your I'm going to jump a bit around,
Sure.
but your work and when you say you're a Haitian artist, there's a certain picture that people have in their mind.
Yes.
The traditional,
Yes.
I believe, is the still pictures.
Yes.
Yeah, and when I saw your work, and it was abstract compared to the traditional Haitian art, and I was wondering, where do you draw your inspiration? Because I can see that it's very abstract, but through this one, it's the traditional, traditional garment that people
Dancers,
have.
yeah.
The traditional dancer outfits. And I can see this is I can see that from the second I look at it, I was oh, I can realize it's this is part of our culture.
Yes.
But it's kind of a new take on our culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying, and I think yeah, so there is a certain image that when people think of Haitian art, what they think of, right? And on some level, I don't really do that. I mean, like, and it's not because I don't, I don't do it not because that's because I choose not to, just because my brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
My brain's wired to make what it makes, right?
Yeah.
But also, I find it that, like I said, because I am in a way, I feel like I straddle the chasm between two worlds. So in a way, like I feel like I feel like this is why I sort of my art is the way it is. For example, I think that and I also think that I think that we should challenge what Haitian art is perceived as. Like, I love the stuff that people traditionally. I love traditional Haitian art, right?
Yeah,
and I have some of them in my house. Trust me, I love it.
Yeah, we all do.
We all do, right? And at the same time, but I want to build on that. Right?
Yeah.
And I think also to be honest, like I think the thing too is also, I've always found that like in my time here in America is I challenge what people think is Haitian, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't sound like when you hear me talk, I don't have a very thick Haitian accent, right? Yeah. And so a lot of times people will get to know me and they're like, wait, you're Haitian? You don't sound Haitian. And I'm like, well, what does a Haitian person sound like, right? So to me, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I think that like in a way that because, so I think in a way like people have an idea of what Haiti is and what Haitian is and what Haitian art is. And I think in a way that just because by the nature of my life, I tend to challenge that a lot, which is like, what does a Haitian person sound like? What does a Haitian person's art look like, right? And I think like that, and then I think in a way this is why this art is the way it is. And I always welcome when I have an art show and people will go, "Wait, you're Haitian?" And I'm like, "Yep, I am." And then I could see them just sort of like like try to scratch their heads trying to figure it out. And one of the things we'll show and at some point is I have besides doing like these art stuff, I also when I go to Haiti I do photography and I take photographs in Haiti, and I like to challenge, show that to people. And sometimes I just want to. I'll go to Haiti and I'll take photographs and I come back and I would just show it to my, beyond just wanting to do it for artwork, as far as to put in galleries and stuff, is I will show it to my friends who are American, right, or who are not from Haiti, who've never been to Haiti, or even Haitian Americans who've never been to Haiti. And I'm like, yep, this is Haiti, right? This is not what you see on CNN.
Yeah.
It's not and
it's all in Port-au-Prince. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Because people when they think of Haiti, they think the capital.
Yes.
Which is Haiti is one of the most beautiful places in the Caribbean. Like we have lush lands. We have peaceful places. Yeah. Like heck, we have tourist resorts. But the thing is, if you go to the capital, you got to know somebody like that.
Well, I'll take it a step further, right? Like I tell people all the time, is that what they got to do? The problem is that they got to go, not just because the plane lands in the capital, right? Unless you go land in Okap, right. But most people are going to land in Port-au-Prince. The plane lands and the thing is I'd say there's a 5-mile radius from the airport where you're gonna where it's where. And I feel like most of the time whenever the news goes to Haiti or whenever what they do is they just show you what's around the airport and then they don't and then that's it, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing is, I tell people all the time okay, you have to literally go if you just go 5 miles from the airport, I guarantee you it's a completely different place. And also the thing about it too is it literally would be if I came to America and I just showed people Detroit, right?
Yeah.
Or just people in New York or whatever. Or whatever airport I landed in, I just showed them what's around the airport and I was done. And so Haiti to me, I remember I had an amazing moment where, and it showed me how much people don't think about Haiti, and it's not their fault. Mm-hmm. It's because they're only shown things when things go wrong, right?
Yeah.
And then so in a way, when you are only shown. Think about it, if you live here and you've never been, let's say you've never even been out to the Caribbean, right? So or you've never been outside the U.S., right? And then you've only been shown, and this happens even in Haitian Americans who've never been anywhere, who've never been to the Haiti or even the Caribbean. So if you only shown Haiti when something bad happens, when there's an earthquake, when something there's a disaster or something's going on, So you start to like, even though you intellectually know there's more to it than that, but you start to only think about it when associated with certain poverty and disaster, right? So the thing is, I remember I remember one time I went to Haiti and I took these pictures of this. I have this beautiful image of this beach, and there's this palm tree that's like that has fallen and it's just lying on the sand and surf. And I came back and I showed that image to someone, and they were like, "Oh wow, there are beaches in Haiti." I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's an island."
What?
I'm like, it's an island surrounded by water, so there are a lot of beaches. But and again, I'm not judging that person. It's just because you realize that like, and as soon as I said that, they felt really bad for thinking like, and they're like, yeah, I guess I said. I'm like, yeah, but to them, they're not thinking like, oh, there's like there's like these beautiful beaches and water and all this stuff, right? And so for them, it's like because they're just thinking like Port-au-Prince, right? They're just thinking, they're just thinking like that little country area around the airport.
Yeah, like the bundle houses.
Yes, so all like
that. The iron roof.
Yes, yeah. So they're just so the thing is like I remember like I was surprised how many people were like, and I remember I had an art show and the people were like, oh wow, there's like the water's beautiful. I'm like, it's the same water. Like if you went
Jamaica.
to if you went to the Bahamas or Jamaica or any other place in the Caribbean, it's the same ocean. But they can't. But it was hard for them to process it, right?
Yeah, it's like, how come it's so clean?
Things like that. And, so you're like, so it becomes, and you realize, and I think that's when it started to occur to me, like, so ever since then, I made it a point of mine whenever I go to Haiti, to for some family related event or just to like, oddly enough, I feel like I've never gone for like purely for vacation. It's always been like I go because.
There's a reason.
There's a reason to go because of my family or something like that, or some charity work I'm doing, whatever. That my family's doing. But anyways, so when we're doing that, it becomes like, but I always try to like bring back like images, right? Because I always feel like in a way, as an artist, I think I have I can show the Haiti that I know, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's the Haiti that I know. I'm not saying it's not the Haiti that somebody else who's Haitian knows. But it's the Haiti that I know, that I see, and to me, there's so much to it.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's the thing about even the abstract stuff. That's not Haitian. That's not quote unquote about Haiti. It's really just like the world through my eyes, right? But it's also like I want people to like I always want to challenge people's perception of the preconceived narrative, right? Like there's like, if you think about it, the entire world as we see it is a story. The story's told about like, again, what this is, what a piece of art is, what Haiti is, right? And so we're told these stories and we just accept them to be fact and accept them to be like, okay, this is what it is. And I come along as an overgrown kid, who goes, yeah, but why is it this way, right? Yeah. Why can't it be more? Or just say to them like, listen, if you just shift your perspective to the a little bit, you'll see it completely different. And that's what the beauty of photography, right? And art and in general, like if I like with example with this piece, right? If I had done this piece, right, and then the perspective was a little bit to the right or to the left, it's completely different. It has a completely different emotional feeling to it. And that's the thing. It's like it really is about the thing about art teaches you for at least for me, it really where you choose to make a stand, where you choose to look matters, where you choose to show matters. And so because again it can because again centigrade, an inch to the left, an inch to the right, these pieces have a whole different can have a whole different meaning, a whole different effect. So that's the same thing to me about when it comes to like a place like showing a place like Haiti or a place like or any place or any person actually is really just it's the choices you make and then sort of like and how you choose to tell that story. And I feel like a lot of times with where we're from, Haiti, we don't get to tell our own story.
No, it's very.
And we should.
Yeah, and the story that mainly we tell of is like the negative parts.
Yes.
Like so and so got kidnapped.
Yeah.
So and so got killed.
Yeah.
So it's like this. Oh wait, what? The country is run by gangs.
Yeah.
But in reality, even though there's some aspect of those are true, but in reality, like majority of Haiti, like the culture is a very family oriented. We have everybody is like it doesn't matter where you go. Like if there's a Haitian in the area, you know that okay, you got this link that is kind of like from the moment you meet, you instantly know okay, we click on a level.
Yes.
Like, it's like
yes.
like for example, there's a time my battery died, and this is completely like unrelated, but like it died in Dorchester, and then this Haitian guy walked in, and we didn't know we're Haitian, and then quite literally through his accent, I was like, oh, he's Haitian, and then I was like, "C'est passé," and then he was like, "Well, boule," and from then on, like he was working, like he was doing a pizza run. Dude dropped everything, and I was like, "I'm gonna help you get out of here, and just and make sure that you stay safe." And then so I called AAA, but the guy literally like he would go on a pizza run, come back, make it's like, "You good? You need anything?" And then it's like, "All right, but I'm good." And then, but like yeah, Haitians like they like helping each other, but at the same time, there's like the whole. It's like a very like our culture is very like we have a hospitality in our culture.
Yeah.
But we don't highlight it as much as like.
That's true. Yeah, we don't. I mean, I think like I would say to you like. It's funny because whenever I go back, like I haven't been back as much as I should have gone. I should go, but whenever I go back, what's interesting is like. But even here in America, like like you said, with counting other Haitians, we are they're extremely hospitable people, and at the same time, they're also extremely happy people.
Yeah,
like, and it's kind of like the thing I tell people all the time, like
you'll not find like anybody who jokes more.
Yes.
Than like,
and
they're like like quick cut.
Yeah, all Haitians like literally like I'd say like the majority of Haitian people that I meet are like if you ask them like how their day was.
That's the story.
It's never like
it was good.
Yeah, it was never. It's never like a one sentence answer. It's like it's a one sentence answer because they don't like you.
Sit down. If you're not to a point where you're a friend or then it will be a one story. But if it's like you're cool, all right, sit down. Let me take you to a journey what my day was.
Yeah, they gotta like Haitian. Like I tell people all the time, like you ask a Haitian person how their day is. I remember so every time I have an art show, I say this to people because they don't believe me, and I'm like, listen, like. It's an entire island filled with storytellers where nothing is just the day was good.
Yeah.
Nothing is just like, oh, I had a bad day, I had a good day. It was, or nothing is just like, it really is, they want to make sure you feel exactly how they felt in the moment whenever it happened. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, that's what I love about it. I mean, that's why I think, like, I love, like, to me, like, I just love it. I think that, like, and I think in a way, you're right, it doesn't get highlighted, it doesn't get talked about, and it's it's a very also like very. The other thing about Haiti too is I think it's extremely colorful. Like there's murals everywhere. All the buses are painted.
The tap buses.
Yes, I think like I tell people all the time. Like that's the thing to me too that I just think they're so amazing because all the buses have these amazing murals on them, and it's an island filled with artists.
Yeah.
Right. It's just that like. They're not calling themselves art. Some of them just don't call themselves artists.
No, there's like I'm a bus driver.
Yes,
but my tap gotta look good.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like that. It's like it's an island. Like and so that's why like to me like I just think, I feel like let's just let's highlight it as much as we can. Let's show it as much as we can of it as we can. And that's why in a way I'm so glad that like we're here doing. Talking about it, and when you called me and I was like, oh man, he's Haitian, and then also in the brief time I've gotten to know you, yeah, dude, it's just like it's there's a kinship with like Haitians, and also I think like again there is that sort of we're just like very vibrant people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and like I said, extremely community oriented too, which I love.
Yeah,
yeah.
One of the things I kind of like noticed as like how us as a culture where like our hospital is like you know what wulib is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't do that in this country. Like if you're driving down and then someone's like, "Hey, esokaba mo wulib,"
Yeah.
we're gonna drive off.
Yeah.
But in Haiti, you may never met the guy in your life, and then it's like they'll flag you down like a taxi. It's like, "Hey, maison wulib mali blink," and there's no addresses. So when they said I'm going blank, you just have, yeah. And the thing is, like, we'll go to the trouble of like, all right, is this the no? No? Is this no?
The thing is, there are addresses that just no, there just aren't. The street signs aren't.
Yeah, if it's like I'm going to Delma Neuf, is the blue house that's like 89. Like, I'm from Kagwo.
Yeah.
With the frère.
Yeah.
And we had a house, we had a street, our house had a street number. I believe our street number was. I'm sorry, parents, if I don't remember it properly, but I think it's like 2341, something like that. That we had it in our gate, like big walls. Yeah. So 2341, you got 3 house down, house 89. 3 house up.
It's just, yeah.
2.
No, that's the thing. It's like
like if they ever find out how to make like a Google map in Haiti,
I think they have it. I think they have like it is. I think like you can nowadays you can use. I could be wrong, but I think you can use like Google Maps to figure out like where you're going.
I feel like if a GPS trying to figure out which house is like what number.
It'll get you in the vicinity.
It'll drop you off in the neighborhood.
Yeah, maybe.
But it won't drop you off to the exact house because
I wonder.
That's one way. Like it will trip up a GPS.
But you know what? But the beauty of it is because everybody knows
everyone.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like usually everybody knows everybody. So when you get like in a certain neighborhood, like I feel like going back as an adult. And trying to get somewhere, people are like, oh, just go here and go here and go here, right? And then you go like, which is why you need to have somebody who's with you, who's from there, especially important friends, because then like they're like, oh, okay, like all right, this is like
it's right next to Tidro's house or Jay-Z Last house,
So it's kind of like I would say like it's an island that's like it's an island that has a small town feel to it.
Yeah.
Right, and even in Port-au-Prince, where there's like millions of people.
Yeah.
It still has this sort of small town feel because people. Usually, you know someone that knows someone that knows where you are.
Yeah, and if you don't know them, you don't know them, they will know someone. Like for example, I've had times where it's like, "Oh, I'm Guy Larguerre's sons," and then they'll be like, "Oh, him? Let me tell you a story about your dad." And then I was like, "I've never met you in my life before. I used to hold you when you were a baby," but then like it would just like they will connect with you in that sense. It's like, and then you're like, I've never met you, but apparently I have. And you know my parents because you're telling me things that they told me, so I know you know them, but at the same time, like, so you kind of have to play that now. Nice. Like,
you gotta play it. Yeah, it's kind of like what it is what's interesting about it is here in America, it still feels like a small town.
A little bit.
Because you meet Haitians who like knew your parents back then.
Yeah.
Or like. And then it becomes and they sort of act like they sort of interact with each other as if it's like still
like we've known you for years.
They act like they've known you for years. So the beauty of it is like you're right. It is this thing where like it does become something where, even in America, the Haitian community once they know you, it becomes like you are. Like they've known you for generations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in a way, it's kind of an interesting thing. But that's why, that's the thing. That's why I tell people all the time. I don't know. Like I lived in LA for a little bit, and and that was interesting and experience in itself. But back when I was living there, like there wasn't. At least maybe I didn't find, and I was there for a short amount of time. Like, it's not the same as like living in like Boston or New York or Florida. Right, or Miami, right?
Where it's like Haitian
Central, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's, I will say that, like, man, I feel like I need, like, no matter where I live, I do feel like if I don't live anywhere that has a Haitian community, I will have to, like, at least once or twice a year travel to like New York or Boston or Miami just to get a little bit of that because it is, yeah, it is this thing, man. Like I said, like you're right. It's you'll hear stories about yourself and about your family, because you'll meet someone that knows someone that, and then also like, oh, and then they act like they just, like, they've known you their whole life. So it's a wonderful, sort of like thing. And I think, like, in a way, like, I think I would love for it to, those aspects as we're discussing, to make those to make their way into, like, the story that is told about Haiti and Haitians, right? Because it's not, because again, the sort of the natural disasters and those things are small, and the other troubles that sometimes can happen in our country is those are
centralized
fragments of the bigger picture. So yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, for example, so this piece, right, is called Folkloric Spectrum: A Step in Time. Sorry, my bad. Folkloric Spectrum, Step in Time. And so the thing is, so the two figures you see in the front are like these traditional Haitian folklore dancers, like traditional dancers, and they're dressed in those costumes that you mentioned. Like, and I love that you recognized it as soon as you saw it.
Yeah,
because
and I kind of noticed there's like people in the background.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, so the way it is, like, you have these two dancers in the front dancing, and they're like, and then usually, like, the traditional sort of costumes or, like, outfits are always very colorful, and I wanted to definitely portray that, all the colors. And then what I did was I brought the colors into, like, their arms and then also into their faces to make it a little bit more surreal and abstract, because I wanted to, like, because I wanted to seem like well, you had to wonder, like, if the colors are from the costumes or the colors are coming from the dancers themselves, right? And how, like, how they all one energizes the other, and I also wanted them to seem like otherworldly, right? Like, so the thing about folk traditional dancing, right? Because this dancing is influenced by African dancing, like they have a dance from, like, from Africa, the dancing from Africa, and so it's one of the things that the Africans, when they were brought to Haiti, when they were, like, enslaved in Haiti, and eventually fought and won their revolution and became free in Haiti and became Haitians. Like, these are some of the things that they have, like, some of the traditions that they have held and has survived all these years and evolved. So that's why I call it, like, a step in time, because to me, when these dancers are dancing, they're stepping through time, through, like, back, before they were
slaves.
Before they were, like, first before they were Haitians, before they were revolutionaries, before they were slaves, and then there were Africans that were, like, kidnapped and brought to Haiti. And there's that, right? And then the other thing that I wanted to show is, so as you can see, the people behind them, right? And what I wanted was that, like, for the viewer, like us, when we're looking at it, we're seeing the dancers, right? But behind them, because the other thing about, like, these dances also sometimes are, because dancing is an expression, right? It's an expression of the human condition, but it's also an expression of, like, just of the world around us through movement. And so, and the thing is, a lot of these dances too sometimes, like, have, like, some spiritual connection, right? Especially, like, so what I wanted to do was show. So the people behind them, to me, were, like, almost as if you were, like, if this is a step through time, right? It's almost like you were seeing, like, so we're watching these dancers, but there's these other, but beyond these dancers, right, is the step through time, through back in Africa, like, let's say, like, several hundred years ago, right? Where these dances originated. So I wanted to seem like as if, like, we're watching the dancers, and the ancestors are watching the dancers too. Right? Like, where in a way, it's like the dancers are, like, like, are sort of this bridge between our time now, 2022, and, let's say, like, 1804 and 1791 and even further back than that. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. And this was inspired by a dance that I saw performed at a wedding in Haiti that I was at. And I was just sort of taken by it, and I took a photograph, and then from that photograph, this image came about. This art piece came about. So that's and this is like and to me like that's the thing. Like I thought it was a really interesting way to sort of show how the thing about Haiti too, right? And just not just is that like it is, on a way, a lot of these African traditions have survived, right? Because again, like because we won our independence in 1804, and in a way, and not just but at the same time though we've also been influenced by like the world around us, right? Which is like, and all these other cultures. So in a way, like and then we've created in Haiti has created a culture that is. That culture itself, if you think about it, is resilience. It's revolutionary beyond the actual revolution that we fought and won. It is revolutionary. Like the fact that this dancing exists and still exists to this day, and there's these traditional dancers are still doing this in a way. It's the fact that like they were like the culture, this the spirit of these people, right? Of these the sort of the vibrancy of the people were not extinguished. Mm-hmm. The flame in them, right? In these Africans that became Haitians once we won the revolution was not extinguished, right? And if you think about it, for example, right? I mean, the term. Sorry, I'm kind of going on for a while here. Feel free to stop me whatever you want. Because I can go on for days about this, but if you think about it, the whole reason why it's called Haiti, right, is because after the revolution and we won, we decided to go back to we chose the name
that the Indians
that the indigenous people from that island called it, which was IET, and so we called it IET, and like and so in a way we're probably one of the few countries who literally did not give it, we chose to like name it and honor the indigenous people from that island, that were from that island, the Taino, the Tainos and the Arawaks. So, in a way, like that's the thing that I think that gets lost is like, and with the dancing, because the dancing is influenced by not just Africa, but it's also like by the indigenous people that we come in contact with, the Arawaks and the Tainos, and also like, and as time goes on, right, it gets more and more influenced by like sort of the culture that develops in Haiti. So. In a way, to me, the dancing is an art form that has so much history in it. Yeah. Which is why I had these people beyond. I would have figures beyond the dancers, which is again all these, like throughout time, these people that influence this sort of art form, that influence the culture, right? And it's like so it's not just the Africans, but the Tainos, the Arawaks, the indigenous people from the island, and also again the others from the Caribbean, and also like how in a way for the past 218 years, right? We've been free and independent, and we've also like in a way cultivated and preserved, not just preserved, but then like but also like evolved this culture that was that until the revolution they were trying to extinguish. They were trying to
even our language.
Yes.
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 It is like our language is a mixture of
so many things.
Yeah, it has French, it has Italian, it has German, it has English,
and it has some of the African dialects.
Yeah,
there too.
And also, like Haitian Creole, it is derived from like slave, like like for example when we said let's go home, saying let's go to the maison, which is like if maison in Creole is like a mansion. Yeah. Kai is what we call our house, and back then the slaves used to live in cages, so in French the name for cage is cage, cage. And then Creole Kai, so so when we like see something with affluent, I was like, oh, that's the maison. And then whenever it's like a smaller thing, I was like, oh, this is my cage, my Kai. So so it's kind of like even our language is like it's
the history there.
Yeah, yeah. So like for me, I've always been like enthralled with like history. So when it comes to history, like I can go on for
Oh,
days.
same here, man. Same here. Trust
Like
me.
I walked in, like when I first got into this this town, it did not look the way like 5 years ago. There's a lot of new stuff, but back then a lot of the houses like from like a lot of the places were like from like back then, but now are getting remodeled. But some of the boulders, they're like a piece of the history, and then I kind of like dived deep into that, and then I did like an episode with Mary Layler, which is like the historical committee. Like I had like it was like time of my life in that episode, and so yeah, like the history of the places I'm around. I was like they kind of like you can walk through them, even like the small nuances things. Like for me, when I speak Haitian Creole, I was like, I know this language I'm speaking in. It is basically like people struggle for because that like if you go to Haiti, like you know who's educated and who's not. You know who speaks Français Maon, and you know who speaks the good French. And so like Haiti doesn't have like there's classism.
Well, yeah, there's classism here too. Though.
There's classism everywhere.
It's just that there, it's more
like you can tell.
It's a little more like sort of
you can
visual. It's a little more like abrupt, I think, than like it is here. Here's like it's hidden better.
Yeah, like you
but
can.
It's still classism in America too.
Yeah, like for example, in America, you can flex like you have like millions when you are like 300,000 in debt. In Haiti, if you don't have it, people know you don't have it. If you don't have the education,
but also
people know.
In Haiti, you're not gonna flex though. In Haiti,
yeah, obviously.
The thing about Haiti though, the thing about Haiti too is like the thing about Haiti is like there's also people like they don't need to flex. They're just like I am what I am.
All you have to do is speak, and then from then they immediately people know where you're coming from.
True. I will say this to you though. I'll say to you like the thing about it though is also like, but I don't know, man. I think like the thing about it though is that at the same time though, you know, I've met some of the most like there's traditional education, right?
Yeah.
And there's like you know just. Because some of the wisest, most like smartest people I've met in Haiti, or even in America, but like in Haiti specifically, like where it's like they didn't have these traditional education. So in a way, when they talk, they don't sort of have the perfect French, or their Creole isn't as poetic as it could be, as you know some others are. But at the same time though, like when you talk to them, once you get past that, right? You talk to them.
They have gems.
You realize that, oh my God, that they are, you know, that they have their own, that they have a wealth of knowledge and all that too. And I think that's the thing. I think the thing is, unfortunately, as with everywhere, right? It's certain. I'd say like, you know, certain value. We place value on certain things, right?
Yeah.
In Haiti, it's like how well do you speak French or how well do you speak Creole, but.
I feel like Haiti is like more like education wise.
Well, because that's the flex, right?
Yeah, like if you got a good degree, like it doesn't matter if he's struggling, like he's a doctor.
Yeah.
Like so
Haiti, the flex becomes about like the education.
Your doctorate, yeah.
But the thing is that's where the flex I guess can happen, right? But you know, at the end of the day, you know, like I gotta say, like for me, at least from my experience, like. Again, like you go to the countryside and you talk to people and
they're wise.
They're extremely wise and extremely and just brilliant. And the thing is that like but you know that's the thing, right? Like in a way, the value system that we like, there's certain value system gets attached, right? And I think like example like gets attached to things, but again, some of my images you'll see like I have this image of one of the best conversations I've had. There's one of them of this. I call him. I'm blanking on the name. What name I gave the photograph, but it's a photo of this. He's selling hats, right? And he's like, and I took this picture of him, and he's got all these, and he wears all the like pretty much a lot of the hats. He's wearing them on his head, right? And it's like a stack of hats, right? It's like a crown of hats, and he's got a bunch of them under, and they're like straw hats. beautiful hats that he's made out of straw and out of other materials, other organic materials. And it's just like, and again, here he is, this guy who's like, he doesn't have like a vehicle. He's just walking around with all these baskets full of hats and other things, and like a lot of them. The moment you see him, he's a hat salesman, right? Because you're like, this guy's got like at least 10 hats on his head or whatever. And it makes a very striking photograph. But I see, like, I got to talk to him when I think I was in Campirin, like, which is in the southern part of the country. Beautiful location, Campirin. But anyway, so we were talking to him. I'm talking to him, and again, it's just like, and even we're talking about like, just about life, and not just about life, but you're talking about like, things, and he's just, again, it was just amazing conversation, and in a way, he taught me like some things that some things that he said to me that resonate with me to this day, and even it's been like maybe 5 years, 6 years since that conversation. So that's the thing, I think that like there's nothing else we could say about where we're from is that like the people there are whether they're in the mountains or they're in the city, they've experienced so much, so that when they're able to, when they talk to you and they tell you, they're able to like really give you insight into the human condition and give you insight into like into the world that you live in, that will even apply to how you live here in America, even though your world might be so different. It might seem on the surface that your life in America and their life in the mountains in Haiti are so different, but they can give you some truths that are like that will resonate through all of them. So that's the thing, man. It's an interesting experience. Sorry, it doesn't. You have to cut me off, 'cause I can go on for days. So you have to learn. Feel free to cut me off. When you have questions.
Growing up, did you think that this was going to be something that you'll be doing? As in, interesting. Like fresh out of high school, like did you think that you're gonna be a painter, or did you think like, okay, I want to do something painting as a hobby, and then it became this thing that like a fuel, like a passion fuel, or I'll just let you answer.
So this is gonna sound like a little bit. So bear with me here. I'm about to go. I'm gonna like. It's gonna sound a little bit off. A little bit abstract. But so in high school, I knew that I wanted to affect people, and what I meant by that is that like I always wanted to sort of like. I used to watch TV, and because when you come here and you're an immigrant, especially as a child, the way you learn about like how to socialize a lot is you watch a lot of TV. Yeah. Also, my mom was working like a lot of my mom was working.
The Last Airbender taught me English.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There you go. Right. So, for me, it was like the Cosby Show and all these other things.
Yeah, The Last Airbender and there's this other show on Cartoon Network. But basically, it was PBS Kid,
cartoons,
PBS Kid and Cartoon Network and anime.
Yes,
I learned English through that.
Yeah, for me it was like Fresh Prince of the Fresh Prince, like like things like that, Moesha, all these other other things, and I even watched like some of the old shows. The other thing about being in Haiti was like sometimes the shows were old. The shows you would watch in Haiti were probably like out of date from like here. Yeah. So you like what you end up like so I'd always like there's certain shows that I loved that I would watch even though they were older shows. So for me it was like shows like that, like
I had like the old Barney VHS tapes.
Yeah, there you go, like things like that. And then so for me, like I was like, I'd watch things like like a different world, or like I'm dating myself here a little bit, but like Moesha, like things like that, or even like the Wonder Years, because that's even though that show was before I got here, but I still ended up watching it. And you end up watching things like and that's the thing, you end up watching a lot of these shows, and again, I'm just I was like I was a TV junkie. That's all I'm like I watched a lot of TV, and that's how again that you learn how to speak English through watching TV a lot, and you also like try to learn about. You also understand try to understand the culture a little bit. Also because a lot of your friends, the kids in your school are in the, that's also a quick way to communicate with other kids. It's like, oh, you saw this show, like, and you talk about the show. That and music, right? So the thing was that like I was a TV junkie, and my mom, and I remember like my mom, again, one of the things about my mom, because my mom, she worked a lot, and at the same time, but when she was home, and we'd sometimes we'd watch TV together, and I would see how things would like, I see how she responded to certain things, right? As far as like, on television. My grandmother was here, and I was lucky that like, my grandmother was here. I have aunts and cousins and all that and stuff. And then my grandma like was like, so I would just, remember my grandmother didn't speak English, but she, but she would watch like soap operas, right? And I'd get home and she'd tell me about like, she would like literally tell you what happened that day on the soap opera. And she was probably like 90% right.
Yeah.
Right? And you'd be like, even though because just from the visuals, right? And she'd be like, so I'd always be like, hey, she'd tell me what's going on, and like, Young and the Restless or whatever. And again, but I would see how like, like the power in like, but I don't mean power in like power you have over someone, but like the
influence.
But the way it sort of like, it affects them, and the way it can entertain them, it can teach them, it can like, it can like, it can uplift them, right? Yeah. It can like, and at the same time too, it can like get them to think about things. It can get them to like, it can make them happy, it can make them sad. So I started to see like, so for me, like I saw a lot of that, the power in storytelling, right? So I wanted to be a filmmaker. Like in high school, I wasn't, I was wondering what I was going to do, and I had to, I was thinking about the traditional like immigrant like job, like careers, like you got to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? All those things. But at the same time, I thought to myself, I'm like, listen, I wanted to be like, I thought about doing these other things, and so I wanted to like, and at some point it occurred to me like, like late in my high school like time, maybe like junior and senior year, like probably junior, like I wanted to be a filmmaker. I'm like, oh, filmmaking, right?
How was that conversation with your parents when you told them?
My mom, I'm blessed. Like, my mom, I'm sure my mom in her head probably had the same reaction every immigrant parent, every Haitian parent has if you said to them that you want to be a filmmaker. But my mom was like,
pay?
Right. But my mom wouldn't know, like, but she was like, okay, well, that's what you want to do. And I think in a way she was like, all right, like I think, she believed I could do it. The thing for her was that like, I don't think she understood like fully how hard that industry is, right? I think she thought like it's like any other job. You go and you like, you go to film school, and then you eventually like, you get a job. Next thing you know, you're like on track to becoming like, Martin Scorsese or something, right? And in the ways it is like that, but I'd say, again, this industry, any like artistic industry it's a winding road. It's not a straight path. So my mom though, like she was always very supportive, but at the same time I could tell she had concerns, and then and the thing is like, and trust me, even as an adult now, I'm sure
we like subtly suddenly
would just like say these things to me, and I think like in a way for her, it took a while for I think like of course,
like our parents, I'm gonna speak for myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I can't really speak for your parents.
No, right.
So like for me, when I told my parents, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
You can read their face immediately. Not really like they'll support you even if like they hate your decisions. They'll support you because that's the thing, like when I have kids, that's what I'll have that. It's like even if I hate their decision, and I think is the absolute worst decision that they can possibly make in their life, and if I think it's a good decision, not good but like it'll bring them somewhere, I'll support them just like my parents supports me. But the thing is, they have a hard time hiding the look in their face.
That's true.
It's like,
that's very true.
Haitians
are not the best poker players.
It's like,
we're not going to play poker.
Like once you hear that, it's like,
like even when they're the
sound effects.
Yes, the sound. They're not the best poker players if you know like the sound effects and what the sound effects mean. You'll definitely figure out like even when they're like they're not good at that. they can't bluff.
Yeah, like for example, they're like,
sound effects.
"I will never call you a disappointment." Chelsea, whoa, tika, so sad.
Yeah,
Like
right.
you know, or the,
Yeah.
or you know the
Yes, yeah. You can read between the sound effects will definitely between the lines. Like I guess Americans say read between the lines. I say read between. I say listen to the sound effects, and you'll know what's going on.
Haitians have the best ad libs.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's all ad lib. It's all ad lib. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. I think like for me, my mom's, like I could tell, like she's concerned. She was concerned. I think she's still concerned now. I mean, like like I'm not. Like exactly like I'm not exactly like like Stanley Kubrick, like or in my this stage of my career, but and I'm not exactly Basquiat in my with the art stuff. So in a way, I'm like my success hasn't been as I think what she had imagined, right? So I think but I think for her, like I think the one thing about my mom is. I think she worries about me as far as like like financial like the stability and all these things because your parents want you to like
not struggle in life.
Not struggle in life, and also because in a way like this is in all fairness, this path that I've chosen is not a path that like that she's accustomed to, so she doesn't really know anyone who's done it.
Yeah.
But for her, I think like she's the thing about her, she's seen my work, and and the thing for her is that. Even though she still gives me hints about like, hey, maybe you should think about medical school, right? I still get those things, but at the same time, I think like for her though, she's also the same person that will flat out if she wasn't working today, she'd be helping me carrying this stuff. She'd help me carry this artwork into the building, and help me set up the easels and stuff like that. So that's my mom's always been like that, So, but that being said though, I think. Yeah, man. I think also for her, I think she likes the fact that in some of my work, I do show. I try to sort of challenge people about the way they think about the world. So so again, it's like she's very supportive, but again within the sound effects, right? Within the ad libs. I know.
Yeah. There's always two conversations that's happening at the same time with your parents.
Exactly. Yeah. There's two conversations happening.
There's the content that they're saying, and then there's the sound effects and the facial expressions that they're not saying.
But I'll say this to you: they're not just having two conversations with you; they're having two conversations with themselves.
Yeah.
Because they recognize that in a way you are a Haitian kid who's in America, right?
And also you're a product of them. So
you're a product of them, but you also have had.
They have like that thing as like. I've kind of like I don't know if this is a thing, but like I feel like sometimes if they didn't turn out the way that they wanted, they start blaming themselves a little bit about like, oh man, I should have probably done this.
That's most parents,
Yeah. So the thing is like I feel like for you can't really. I feel like it's like a tree. You can try the best to like. My dad has this thing when I was little. He used to tell me. He was like the reason that unlike most Haitians, my dad didn't beat me. So he's like, here's the thing. When you have a tree as a sapling, you can put things to support it so it grows up straight. Because if you don't support it as a sapling, then the tree's gonna grow up sideways. So you can try to have it straight, but sometimes nature happens.
Yes.
So I kind of like he told me that like when I was in Haiti.
That's a wise man.
It stuck with me till now, because I'm kind of realizing it. Like they had everything I was interested in when I was little. They would like not allow, but like let me express myself on that. Like. I used to like writing poems. They're like, I do that, and then when I start picking up a camera, and they start seeing me filming. My dad got me my first camera, which was like a Nikon Coolpix D80, and then once I start writing scripts, they like everything I would ever make. Like I remember when I first made my first short film. Literally, I had the whole family just watch it with me.
Nice.
So it was nice. So they supported it, And then after graduation, the tones flip.
Well, yes, because now it's a matter. Yeah, of course, the tones flip because
it's like
now they're thinking about
adult,
how are you gonna like? Well, because now it's like, how are you going to live? How are you going to? Because we gotta remember, for them, for an immigrant parent, it's because remember, our parents left their country, they left their home, they left something that they knew.
Yeah.
So remember, they left their language, their home, their livelihood, their friends.
Yeah.
They left, and a lot of times their family. They left all these things behind to come here and start over, right?
They sacrificed a lot, I know.
Yeah, they sacrificed a lot. So for them, their life here in America, right? Even for those that are like, that have done really well for themselves and are wealthy, whatever, right? That have become like, that are doing really great in America, like. But they're in survival mode because they had to like sort of start over.
Yeah.
So they had to like learn how to survive so they're in this sort of. So for them, like that experience, I feel like that experience of like starting over, coming to this place that is so different from where. Yeah. At least visually, and especially think about it, it's freezing. In Boston, it's cold, it's freezing, right? It's like the winters here are no joke, right? So for them, like I think it's always gonna be, they worry about us and how do we survive? Because they know how to survive, right? Because they had no choice, right? The thing is, so in a way, like they wonder, like, can we handle?
Yeah, because for them. We might live the survival part with them, but they did all the grunt work.
Yeah, there's levels.
So like for us, we
didn't live it.
Yeah, we were bystanders.
Yes.
Like for me, like I know, like I have like stories like when I first came here, and I know what we left in Haiti.
Yeah.
Because like in Haiti, I had servants, and then I came here. And then I had to learn how to make my own bed, and I thought I would struggle. But then like later on, I found out like. They had to do multiple jobs to keep the ball running, and then like I know what I know what they sacrificed. But the thing is, I can say I never struggled in my life. For me, it's like my life has been an upward trajectory. That's in like.
Can I say this to you? Like again, I'd say this to you, right? Like the way I would say it. I would think is that like it's not that you've never struggled, right? It's not that I've never struggled. It's that like there's levels to this, man. Yeah. Like so in a way, like because again, part of being an immigrant child, right, is that you understand like what you've seen, like what your parents have had to do.
Yeah.
So in a way, it makes like in a way you always judge your struggle.
It's not
based on what they've done, right? But here's the thing: pain is relative. Pain is always relative.
True.
Struggle is relative.
True.
Right? Like in a way, like it's like anything. It's like going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
Like like if you've been lifting weights all forever, lifting up lifting up 100 pounds might not feel that bad, right? It might be easy for you. But if somebody who's never been to the who's only been to the gym for the past couple weeks, that might be extremely hard for them. They might even injure themselves, right? So in a way, that's the thing about life. It's like everything in life is a muscle, right?
Yeah.
Like is muscle memory, like even emotional muscle memory. So the thing is like we haven't had those struggles because we never had to like leave like everything behind, right?
Yeah, like
so
back in Haiti, the things that I like when I came here, I was like begging to go back because I was kind of comfortable with the position I was in. Yeah. And then when I came here, like I used to think like oh man, life is so difficult. Life is like I'm struggling. But at the same time, like after hearing like what they go through, or like whatever they like the things that they sacrifice, because like in the work that they put in just to let it go, to me it's like out of this world. And so like sometimes I look at my life and I look at their life and I try to like match it up to, because like I hear stories about my dad when he was my age and I try to match it up to my life. It doesn't equal.
You can't compare. You're trying to compare
apples to oranges.
You're trying to compare. Like, you can't try to match it, right? I mean, the thing is that you can be influenced by it.
No, I am. Like,
you know what I mean? But the thing is, like, trying to like comparing it, it's hard because. But I'll say this to you, right? I guarantee you,
Yeah.
your dad, like, you know how, so you look at your dad, right, and your mom, and their experience that they went through when they were your age, and on some level, it's like looking at somebody who's, you can't fathom it because it's like they're from like this other planet, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's because of what they've gone through. But the thing is, I guarantee you, they look at your life because again, you grew up in a world that they don't know, right? And in a way, like, so they probably look at you and go, they can't imagine, like what growing up here is like, right? So, on some level, they may think they might think it's easier, but I guarantee you, they had to like live your life. There's certain things that they would find completely, because there's certain muscles that they haven't exercised, right? As far as like what it's like to navigate like the society. So, at least through at your age. So it's just one of those things where like, yeah, man, I tell everyone all the time, and I think on most of my art shows I say this too. Whenever my mom's at my art show, I say this, and it's true, is that my mom, and I think it's actually whatever chance I get, my mom is to me, and I think I think even beyond my bias is the fact that she's my mother. Just like objectively, I think my mom is a strong woman. My mom is an amazingly strong. I mean, like if I had a fraction of my mom's strength, I would be unstoppable. Like,
I feel like we all,
It's like my mom, and also I think my mom is like also like I think my mom's a genius. To be honest with you, and I think that and I think that like she has artistic sensibilities. She's not an artist, but I feel like in a way, had she had the luxury of like living here and like be like, oh, I can just live my dream, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what she would do, but I feel like in a way, like, she probably again, like, I can show my mom a painting and of course she'd be like, at first her response is like, whether it's beautiful or not, right? She's like, oh, and I always ask her, like, would you put this in your house or not? Would you, if you didn't know me, would you buy this to hang it on your wall or not, right? And after she says yes or no, and my mom would be very honest, I'm like, okay, why? And there are times when she starts to talk about it. Like, if you, like, of course, her original answer is, oh, because it's beautiful, right? All right, fine, I get that, but why? Like, what? And you have to ask her a few more questions. But once she starts to talk about it, you realize that this person understands this, or on a level that is like the way an artist would talk about it, right? Yeah. And you just have to you have to just get beyond the surface of it. So what I'm saying to you is, like, to me, and I'm sure you feel the same way about your parents, is like, to me, like my aunt, my mom, my mom, my aunts, my uncles, like, they've been through some really hard times, right? Yeah. Coming here, and then they've flourished and they've blossomed. But I'll say to you, like, I would say that the beauty of it is that trying to compare yourself to them is hard. It's just, you can't.
Yeah, because
but what you have to know is
their
this
work ethic, and then like the things that they have to do just to put food on the table, and the constant just nonstop, because like I can say, like, for my father, he does not know how to stop working. I don't know if I'm gonna edit this out, but but like, for example, like, he is like a workaholic, and so he has a broken foot, he'll still be doing like houseworks, like he'll still be just like talking about, oh, I gotta get like garden, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, gotta do this, gotta do that. It's like nonstop. Yeah. Like you said, like, they've been on survival mode from get-go, so turning that switch off there's
no turning it off.
Yeah, in which I kind of want to get into like your art real quick.
No, it's okay.
Because you said like, get under the surface. This one's been catching my attention.
Oh, sure,
for a while. Do you want to talk more about that?
Oh, sure. All right, so we can talk about this one. So this one is called. So this one is it's called Layers of Revolution. Right. So this is actually a photograph. This is actually like this. No, sorry, not a photograph. This is basically like incorporated photography and paint and paint. So it started out as a painting, that I painted it. I painted it, and I also took a photograph, and then I painted the photograph. So and then I did some digital. So it's basically like it's actual physical painting, a photograph, a fine art photograph, and then like did a digital painting on top of that, and then it became this sort of piece. It's a multimedia piece. It's called Laser Revolution, and the beauty of this is, so the model actually is a Haitian American who was born here in New York, and so I believe, I'm not sure if he's ever been to Haiti actually, but yeah, so that was the thing, and so it's called Laser Revolution, and I had it where, like as you can see, there's a lot of energy in it. There's a lot of just movement. Right, and so the way this, I love this piece actually, and as you can see, right, it's well, the head and the body are not connected to each other.
Yeah.
Right, and I kind of wanted, so in a way, this to me like it goes, it speaks of the different levels of revolutions. Right, there is the internal one, which is the ones that we have with ourselves, the one that because in a way, and for any revolution, and there's the external one, when we have that we rebelling against societal constructs and things like that, and injustice, and other things like that too. But so in a way, and of course, for there to be, it's hard to do the external without the internal.
Yeah.
Right. Every revolution starts within. Right. But even if you're just the internal, you're doing the internal without the external. Like, trust me, it can feel, it's hard to do. It's hard. Revolutions are hard. They're like, they're Herculean tasks, right? And it is a struggle, right? So, and I wanted to like just sort of depict what that struggle is, right? And for me, I wanted all my work is really, especially like my abstract surrealist work, starts with the micro and the macro, the self, and then you broaden out to the societal. They're very layered, right? It's like the same way this is layered by several different steps and different mediums. It's how usually it's also the meaning behind it. But so as you can see, like you have this body, right? That is, so you have all this movement happening, right? This swirl, this movement is happening in the background, right? And it's all these sort of sharp, sort of swirls and sharp, strokes, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to capture the energy that exists, the sort of fury, and also at the same time, it can also be seen as a bit of a grace there too, and elegance in it. But you see that he's the body, right? So this is the body right here, right? And he's in this sort of like dance or almost fighting stance, right? Where I wanted the audience to, all my work is a conversation with the audience. So, and then of course, standing facing him is the head, right? And again, it speaks to like this idea that like a lot of times, like when we're in our body, when we're in our like our head, sometimes like our perceptions is filled with not just our own ideas, but the ideas that are imposed upon us, right? What we're told about ourselves, right? What we're told about what it means to be Haitian, to be black, to be a man, to be, whatever, right? The ideas that are there's the I call it there's the narrative that we're given, and then there's our own internal story, our own internal, voice, right? And then of course there is what we feel in our body, right? What we feel, right, within our gut, within our cells, like within our body, right? How we move through this world, right? How we think through this world and how we move through this world sometimes can be two different things. So I wanted to explore how these things can sometimes be in concert with one another and at times be like in opposition to one another. And the thing is that, as you can see now, as you can see, he's got the headphones on, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be like, and this is this idea of like, this is a question the audience should ask themselves: is he blocking out the noise, or is the noise being imposed upon him, right? Mm. Like what's coming through those headphones, right?
What's 6 and 8?
So I'm glad you brought that up. So.
And I see Isis too.
Okay, so 6 and 8 are interesting. Like, so technically this is an 8, but the way it's an 8 and infinity. Right?
Oh, so it's one of those like it's because 6 if you can switch it to be a 9.
Yes. And then you can switch it to be a 9, and also it could be seen as a B, right? As in like a lowercase b.
Yeah.
So I wanted, again, this is why I like it to be so like I like it to be vague like that. But again, if we're just gonna go with 6 and 8, right? Mm-hmm. So 6 and 8, because he's Haitian American, I thought it would be interesting. 60. So again, layers of revolution, right? 68 is, if you think about 68 in American history, mm-hmm. it's a very tumultuous time.
Yeah.
So in 68, you have like a lot of political, like the assassination of King.
Yeah.
Of Dr. King. You have like what happens at these the Democratic Convention where the protesters are beat up and are assaulted by the police. You have things like that that are like. You have a lot of tumultuous times. You have riots that are happening, right, in '68 because of the fact that like a lot of our civil rights leaders are being assassinated, and also like where you also have like riots that are happening because of these the extreme injustices that are happening in American society. So, and then the public, and there is a lot of anger and resentment that's happening in this country. It's a very tumultuous time in '68 chaotic. In American history, as far as like socially and culturally and when it comes to race relations. So that's the thing, right? But at the same time, if you flip it, 86 is around the time, I could be getting these dates. I'm not sure how in the nose I am with these dates, but 86 is when the dictatorship in Haiti, like, sort of crumbles, right?
Oh, like Baby Doc.
Yes. And I believe there was that. And for me,
was
that was
Baby
also
or Papa Doc. No, Papa Doc.
Papa Doc was the dad, and he died, and then Baby Doc took over, and then Baby Doc left in '86. And for me, like the thing about it is, but that's when I also became consciously aware of like, because I grew up in the dictatorship, and then I went to school. Yeah, I'm old.
No.
That's a joke. But yeah, I remember I went to school one day. All of a sudden, the flag was like, when I grew up, the flag was red and black. And I go to school one day, and then they're like, and all of a sudden they're literally like like raising this blue and red flag, right? And I was and so to me like that's why I'm consciously that's one of my so it's a moment for me, and I think for a lot of kids back then where you're consciously aware. I know we were very young, but you're consciously aware of like the shift, how like how you're like a political reality can shift like that, right? So that's why I thought those two dates, 68 and 86, especially since he was Haitian American, and I know he doesn't, and both of these things are before his time, right?
Yeah.
But I thought in a way, it was interesting that these two dates can like have such, they're moments of, they're revolution. They're moments where there's a lot of turmoil, but at the same time where ideas are shifting, where like the way people thought about the world is shifting, and people are pushing against the status quo, whatever it is, right? In these different societies, so where there is things are being challenged for good or for bad, right? Yeah. So there is that, right? And then again, then there's consequences to that kind of challenge, and then so the thing is, for example, if you notice with him, that the body is darker than the head, right? And that's on purpose, right? Because again, part of like we talk about this idea of like where you are getting, being like where the body experiences labor, experiences even though the mind tells you what pain is, but the body experience, it's felt through and injuries and all that. But also the body being darker, being black, being like darker is that like, in a way, the body fights, right? And it's in a way, and then the head oftentimes is, to be honest, like being in America being in the world now, is that you're told what it's like. You're told what being black is.
Yeah.
Right? You are told this is what being black is. Even though, mind you experience it.
Yeah.
But you always have people telling you what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and
right?
even being like, Like, for example, like I'm an immigrant.
Yeah.
And I came here when I was like little.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can relate on this. There's this crossroad that you're at that sometimes you don't feel like you fit in with the African Americans or the Haitians because you're not Haitian enough,
or American enough, yeah,
or black enough, and so because like, and also because like the way our parents is and the way that they kind of have like this like stronghold in our lives that is like so you act differently. And then through that, people would notice it, and then it's like, okay, you don't have this.
You don't fit in that box.
Yeah, so there's no box that really classify you into like
I can understand that.
Yeah, into like this like space, because like you can like unless you're with like even when you're around with like it's always like a competition, whereas like for example, I just start listening to compa.
Okay. Congratulations. You're gonna enjoy it.
and when I told my cousin that, and he was like, "What? How you Haitian not listen to compa?"
Yeah.
And then he was like, I was like, I used to like American music, and then because like when I first got here, like when I was in Haiti, like the only band I listened to was Black Eyed Crew, and they were rappers. Came here, it was like the first song I hear in this country was "God Bless America" by Lil Wayne.
Okay.
And then after that, I got introduced to Bruno Mars by the "Man in the Mirror" by Lil Wayne. And those are the songs that like those are like like when I think of like American songs, those are like what I first got in. And then after that, it was like 50 Cent in the club, and those and then those were kind of like the area. So I kind of stuck with that lane because I was like, oh, these sounds good, and they slap. And so I was like, and so now like I'm getting older, I was like, let me see a little bit of my culture. Yeah. So I start listening to. I was like, wait, the last president in Haiti was a musician.
Yeah, Martelly.
Yeah, and so I was like, let me see some of his songs. And I was like, it sounds good. And so I start listening to it. But majority of my playlist is either country and rock. And so when my cousin look at my playlist, or when everybody else who like have this idea like, okay, you're Haitian. Yeah. So when you hear zippity pop pop, and like you're supposed to like you got that hit with it. I was like, but
I'll say I'll say this to you, right? I'll say to you like, so it's not. Trust me, it's I think it's common. I'm not saying it's common, but like I have experienced this too. This is why I often say that like I sort of straddle a chasm of two worlds, right? Because because again, you're never gonna like people. The thing is that people want to quickly categorize you, like all right, because remember like oh okay, I know like
it makes things simple.
Makes it simple, and they also they know how to deal with you, right? Yeah. And because of the fact that like you don't have an accent, right? So like so for them it's like when the other part of your world creeps in, they're like wait, hold on, I thought you were like I thought you were just this black dude from like like from Massachusetts. Yeah. It's like no, I have this whole other past, right? And then at the same time, when you're dealing with Haitians and of course because your formative years were here in America, like they're like, wait, hold on, you're not Haitian enough, whatever. And here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna say this to you right now and save you a lot of time. You're never gonna be Haitian enough, American enough, or black enough, or whatever. You're never gonna be any of those things, and nor should you be, because what you have is this, right?
I'm Haitian with a little spice with it.
Yes, because you have the beauty, and this is what's gonna make you an amazing filmmaker. Yeah. This is what's gonna make you. This is why already has made you a great filmmaker, and you're gonna get even more better, and you're even better about it with it, and you're gonna like tell these amazing stories. It's because you are able to see different perspectives.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and the thing about it is because of the life that you've lived, and the thing is like trust me. Like when I got here, like I love listen. I remember like being like when I was in high school, like listen to Metallica. I can listen to Metallica and Tupac and not and in the same like literally I can literally
like
in the same like in the same like I listen to Metallica, flip it. Back then it was like it was like what CDs, right?
Yeah.
But like but listen, if you look at my playlist, you look at my phone right now, you could go, you find Metallica, you find Tupac, you'll find Kendrick Lamar, you'll find like you find like Sweet Mickey, you find like T-Vice, you find some like I just discovered I didn't discover Haitian rap until like recently because I was just like, because again, like I'm a little bit older, so like, when I went through what you went through, which is like trying to like starting to like incorporate Haitian music into my thing. It was like I was listening to some of the old school stuff, and also I just started to listen to some stuff that my mom, some of the old stuff my mom would listen to in my
Chasson says you
all that stuff, right? But the thing is that like it's you're never gonna be honestly like I think. It's like in life, like right, like of course when you first get here, you want to quickly assimilate and learn like the code, like learn how to like navigate this place. But then, but trust me, the superpower, and it is a superpower, is you completely can like you are able to like. Talk to your dad, completely understand where your dad's coming from. Talk to like somebody who, talk to like a young person, like who's younger than let's say like even like younger than you, somebody like a teenager here, completely understand what that teenager is going through, right? Mm-hmm. And you're able to make connections and how that experience and that experience have similarities.
Yeah.
So in a way,
you get to be that bridge.
Yes, you get to be that bridge. So in a way, like you're never gonna be. There's always gonna be moments in your life. When you're 90. It's going to be moments in your life where someone's going to talk to you and you're going to say something or act a certain way and they'll be like, wait, like it's going to throw them off. And because they just don't realize that you have this vast, very diverse experience.
Yeah.
And in your mind's a library of different worlds, right?
Yeah.
So it's you know what? Like, hey, man. To me, I tell people all the time. Like, people tell me, like, oh, they're like, Nick, you're not really like American, or you're not really black. And that's the thing. The other thing that happens too, beyond like the fact that the Haitian part is also there are times where, let's be honest, like in this sort of society that we live in, where there's an idea of what being black is, and that gets imposed upon you, right? Where well, you're black, you gotta do this, right? And you black, so that means this for you, and that's not the case, right? Because that's not the case. Not just for African Americans, but it's not the case for like us who come from this other place, right? Yeah. Black is a very like is a universe unto itself of just possibilities, right? So. And that's why, in a way, I did it like this, right? Because I wanted it to be where a lot of times, like, what it means to be black, what it means, what white, like what white is, right? Is sort of, it's like inception. It's given it. It's been planted in you, right? And by the way by media, by what people tell you, by the racism that we experience, and part of like growing up is fighting that. Part of growing up is challenging what you've been told.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then also
realize our culture. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, there's I believe we're going to a break after this statement.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of our culture like as being like coming, because I came from Haiti, so there's times where you get those identity issues, and when it comes down to it, it's like you just have to at the end of the day just kind of accept it. Like for example, yesterday, I remember I was playing music with Ryan, and Ryan was listening to, and the genres, and I'm pretty sure some of the songs that we're playing, pretty sure. Hey Ryan. But yeah, for some of the songs, did any of them shock you that I was listening to any of them?
Just the change between them. You would go from like American classic rock to French rap.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's
yeah.
dude. That's a trust me. Like that warms my heart to hear that because I've done that too, and the thing, and not just that though, but like that's the thing. Like you, dude. Like you are able. It's like going to it's like there's some people in this world that like they can only have a burger or whatever, right? They can only eat, like,
I know
a certain
people
thing.
who only listen to like hard rap and that's it. If it's not drill,
And there's nothing wrong
it's
with
not
that.
on their playlist.
And there's nothing
But
wrong
yeah.
with that, right? But the thing is, like, but at the same time, but there's a beauty in, and it's like, but remember, there's nothing wrong with you having this diverse taste. And part of the thing about it is because, like, again, you are drawing from like different places, different influences, different interactions. So like in a way, man, just like
You've lived many lives, of course.
Yes, you have lived many lives.
Yeah.
And in a way, like,
'Cause
embrace it, love it, man. Like that is what makes you you. That is what makes you. And to me, like, I think, like that's why for me, like I said, like I'm from like a place in Haiti called a place in Port-au-Prince called Carrefour, right, the Crossroads, and I. It took me a while, and actually you're younger than I am, and I'm so happy to hear that you're so, like, it took me a while to get to really sort of embrace it. And I think from a very young age, I was very proud of my identity, but
yeah, I'm proud to be Haitian, but it's taking me a while to actually get into the culture of.
It's taking you a while to fully understand the full scope of it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the thing. Because I tell people, being Haitian, right, is there's so much to it. Because just the history alone is so much to process that, like, it's gonna take you a lifetime to fully soak it all in.
Yeah.
And because there's so much to it, and because again, like, you grew up here, part of your life you grew up here. So listen, man, like, again, like, you get to define. We all get to define what this is.
Yeah.
And that's why for me, I'm like, when people tell me like, oh, your art's not like, traditional Haitian art, I'm like, okay, good.
It represents you as a. Because we had to live a bridge, and like, which is why when I saw your art, I kind of found like it's like a refreshing taste.
Yeah.
Because like when I saw it, my first immediate reaction, even on the phone when we talked, I was like, oh wow, this is new, and I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah. I think we're going to a break now.
All right, sure.
Oh, wow, okay. So, sorry. We're out of time. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Talking with Guy with Nicolas. See you next time. We're back on the air. Ciao.